On India Matters, we start with the visit of Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who is in India for an important, crucial meeting ahead of Prime Minister Modi's visit later this month to China, his first in 7 years. Now, the India-China relationship, viewers, is a very complex one. Ties are still recovering from the Galwan clashes in 2020. It hit the trade aspect, people-to-people ties, and all aspects of a bilateral relationship. There's been progress since then. Some would say even incremental progress. But now it is being expedited by Trump's punitive tariffs. Prime Minister Modi's visit later this month is meant to send out a message to the Trump administration. Also to allow India to better navigate or best navigate the headwinds that exist right now. And also ensure that New Delhi best hedge its bets. Before I play out this report that tells you exactly what all has happened in the India-China relationship, more importantly, what lies ahead, I want to play out these two important sound bites. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Indian Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar, who held the first round of discussions with his Chinese counterpart.
Having seen a difficult period in our relationship, Excellency, our two nations now seek to move ahead. This requires a candid and constructive approach from both sides. In that endeavor, we must be guided by the three mutuals: mutual respect, mutual sensitivity, and mutual interest. Differences must not become disputes, nor competition conflict. Excellency, when the world's two largest nations meet, it is natural that the international situation will be discussed. We seek a fair, balanced, and multipolar world order, including a multipolar Asia. Reform multilateralism is also the call of the day. In the current environment, there is clearly the imperative of maintaining and enhancing stability in the global economy as well.
Exchanges and dialogue at all levels. We maintained peace and tranquility in the border areas and resumed the Indian pilgrimage to the Mount Garampochi and Lake Mapayonzo in the Xizang Autonomous Region. We should firm up confidence to dispel interference, expand cooperation, and to further consolidate the momentum of improvement and development of China-India relations so that while pursuing our respective rejuvenation, we can contribute to each other's success and provide the most needed certainty and stability to Asia and the world.
Once locked in a tense standoff, Asia's two superpowers, India and China, are now cautiously inching towards a diplomatic reset. The signs are subtle but telling, from reviving direct flights, resuming tourist visas for Chinese nationals, as well as a recent uptick in high-level bilateral visits. And now, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has arrived in New Delhi for border talks with National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. This will be only the second such engagement since the deadly Galwan clash in 2020, which sent relations into a deep freeze. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has met with and held bilateral talks with his Chinese counterpart. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also set to meet with Wang Yi, signaling a broader push to stabilize ties. Wang Yi's trip sets the stage for a more significant diplomatic reset. Prime Minister Modi is scheduled to visit China to attend the SCO summit later this month, his first visit to China in 7 years. The engagements follow a thaw in October, when both sides agreed on patrolling arrangements to de-escalate tensions along the line of actual control, helping ease a 5-year military standoff. The move opened the door to re-establishing bilateral ties that hurt trade, investment, and air travel. As India and China edge back to the negotiating table, all eyes are on just how far this fragile reset can go in easing tensions and paving the way for long-standing stability. The recovery and reset comes amidst punitive tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, leading to broader global realignments. Samia Afsar, NDTV World.
All right, India and China are not alone, as Trump has now waged an economic war against some of the other emerging economies, Brazil being one of them, with many in fact now suggesting that BRICS could potentially collectively stand up against Trump's economic bullying. Now, is there a case for it to actually happen, given the fact that both India and China have publicly said that de-dollarization is something that they are not in favor with? Let's get in Mohammad Ghazali, who's been tracking this space very closely for us. Now, Ghazali, this is something that collectively, if the emerging economies come together, they have a better chance of being able to ensure that Trump doesn't economically bulldoze them. Brazil has already spoken about it. What is it that New Delhi feels about this?
See, New Delhi has also reacted positively to Mr. Lula's comment, the Brazilian president, when he said that we need better coordination among the BRICS members. Though India has very categorically rejected the entire idea of de-dollarization, but India is also pushing for trade among the countries in Indian currency as well. That came up very recently from the External Affairs Ministry when they were explaining about the idea about a virtual meet among the BRICS countries, which Mr. Lula had proposed, and very soon we can have that as well. The External Affairs Ministry also spoke about the RICs, the trilateral summit between Russia, India and China. It is very hopeful that perhaps the talks will also focus on this when Prime Minister visits China for the SCO summit, but as of now there has been no deliberation on RIC as well. As far as today's meeting is concerned, there are 5 points on which India and China will be discussing or holding talks. One obviously is a land border issue on which the special representative Mr. Wang Yi as well as Mr. Doval will be meeting tomorrow. But besides that, the External Affairs Minister very categorically said in his opening remarks that there are some pressing issues on which both India and China will have to move positively, one being the border issue. Then we have some positive steps being taken by the Chinese side with the resumption of Kailash Mansarovar Yatra,
yes.
India issuing the visas to Chinese nationals, and there are talks being held about the cross-border trade to resume between the two countries as well.
All right, we leave it there. Mohammad Ghazali tracking that space closely for us, viewers. And this is exactly the big questions that we are putting forth right now on India Matters. Let's put them out, viewers. First and foremost, will India and China now unite against Trump tariffs? China spoke about it. They were the first ones to condemn the 50% unimaginable tariffs that US had actually put on India. There was absolutely no case for it. So is there now a valid argument for them to come together? The second key question that we are asking, will people-to-people ties continue to recover? Direct flights being one of them. There have already been Chinese visas that are being issued to Chinese nationals by India. What next to ensure that the people-to-people connect continues to build, even as some contentious issues require more deliberation? Is the stage set for possibly an India-China-Russia sort of a troika to come together? There have been many who feel that this is right now the best time to engage and look at that opportunity. Don't miss the fact that the first world leader that Vladimir Putin spoke to after his meeting with Donald Trump was Prime Minister Modi. And that tells you that there is a parallel setup that is being created. Can it be elevated? Should it be elevated and evaluated as an opportunity to take on the economic bullying by America? The other two questions, Pak-China nexus, that continues to be a thorn. That is something that India has spoken about. It came to light during Operation Sindoor as well, when the Indian Army spoke about it. Is that something that's a recurring problem? Let's get you the next question as well, which answers that as well and links it, which is the trust deficit issue. That is something that requires more deliberation, more talks. And how is it that the two countries are going to bridge that? Let's get in our guest joining us this evening, Aina Tanjan, who's a senior fellow joining us from Beijing, Ambassador Sajjanar, diplomat joining us on the broadcast, and Professor Andrew Latham, distinguished scholar of international security strategic studies. In fact, Ambassador Sajjanar, let me start with you, sir. As the Indian on the panel, I give you the first word, which is that as things stand right now, this is pragmatic diplomacy for us. We understand that we continue to have some issues with regard to China. There are some contentious issues that require more talks, more deliberations. But right now, the global headwinds are such that India and China are looking to probably come together and Trump-proof their economies.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gaurie, for having me. You are very right. You know that when you say that there are issues which require more talk, more deliberations. But Gaurie, let me say that even more than talk and deliberation, what it requires more is action. and action on the part of China. You know, we have seen that there have been hostile intent, hostile actions from China, whether it is, demanding Indian territory, 93,000 square kilometers, or as you mentioned, supporting Pakistan as far as, and it is not a question of talking right now. This thing has been going on since 1962, 1963. It is not only Operation Sindoor. 81% of Pakistan's weaponry equipment is of Chinese origin. They supplied them with intelligence during the current conflict. So, the problems are huge. They are constructing this huge dam on the border with Arunachal Pradesh. There are innumerable, even in terms of trade, you look at it, that, there is a $100 billion trade deficit that India has with China.
Yes.
On none of the issues, UN Security Council membership, Nuclear Suppliers Group membership, where does the obstacle come from? The world is with India. Only China stands against India. So I think China will need to look into it. Let me very quickly, at the end, you mentioned about trust deficit. How does trust come in? Trust comes through actions. So it's not words.
Hold your thought there, sir. Let's get in a view from Beijing on that. Let's get in a view from Aina Tangent on that. Aina Tangent, if China is supporting India when it comes to Trump's economic bullying right now, completely unjustified what Trump has done in terms of the 50% tariffs. But Ambassador Sajjanar just highlighted the specific issues in the India-China relationship that needs to be understood and addressed by Beijing before there can actually be greater economic collaboration.
I think culturally there's some differences in how China and India approach problems. I've been doing Indian shows for many years now, and generally what the ambassador said is the litany of claims that are made by pundits on Indian TV, and it always comes down to, what are you offering me? What are you going to give me? I mean, the whole point about having a discussion is finding mutual solutions, win-win. You cannot change the past, but you can try to make a better future. Right now, India is under attack, and it's not just these tariffs.
No, India is not under attack. No, India is not under attack. There are unjustified tariffs, and we have very clearly said that whatever may be the case, there's not going to be a trade deal that we don't agree to. So there's no attack.
Would be an economic attack.
And we're standing up against the economic bullying by Trump.
Are you going to talk, or am I going to talk?
No, sir, I'm just correcting you there, but go ahead, sir. You have all the time now.
All right. So India was unjustly hit, but so was Brazil. And South Africa is hit with 30%. This idea that it has to be India and China, I think, is wrong. I think what it is it has to be BRICS leading the third world, not just the third world, all countries against economic bullying. This is India's opportunity to stand up and be a true champion, as it did when it created the non-aligned movement. So this is an opportunity for India, and it doesn't have to partner directly with China. It can partner with other nations. The ambassador said everybody's with India. Well, in that case, India should be with everybody else. The fact is, 40% of the world's GDP is represented by the 10 countries of BRICS. They represent the majority of people, of resources, 4 times the production of the United States. They represent the markets, the youth of the world. So if they stand together, they will not be hung separately. And this is the real issue here. China is reacting to a bully, and so should India.
There's just one thing I would like to make a distinction of. Collaboration is what I had referred to. You mentioned partnership, and I guess the nuances between the two words is exactly the divide that probably New Delhi and Beijing need to really cover there. But let's get in Andrew Latham as well. Andrew, good to have you on the show. Let me start by asking you, most certainly many people in Washington, D.C. did not want or did not imagine that 6 months into his term, Donald Trump would ensure that the entire emerging economy bracket, or at least the ones that count, whether it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, would actually want to evaluate some possible mechanism to try and take on America collectively. This is most certainly not what many people in DC were thinking would happen 6 months into Donald Trump's tenure.
No, and Donald Trump has made a number of, I characterize them as strategic missteps here. He was emboldened because the Japanese rolled over, the Europeans rolled over when it came to tariffs. Everybody rolled over except for India. China wasn't tariffed anywhere near the degree to which India was, although if you look at the fine print, you'll see that pharmaceuticals aren't covered by the tariffs and electronics aren't covered by the tariffs. There are so many loopholes that these tariffs are, in a sense, more optics than they are hard reality. But I want to back up a little bit because I think all this talk about BRICS and about the global South uniting, et cetera, here's the fundamental reality of international relations. Sometimes states' interests align and they're able to sit down at a table and do a deal. Now, India and China's interests on the line of control on the disputed border are not perfectly aligned in the long term, but in the short term, they really are. Both countries want to dial down the level of tension and resume fairly normal trade and people-to-people exchanges. Okay. But if you look at a layer just below that, you'll realize that states, especially including great powers and states that aspire to be great powers, often have hardwired conflicting interests. BRICS will never agree on very much other than theatrics and optics. Why? Because India doesn't agree with China, as the ambassador pointed out, on many, many, many issues. Both aspire to be leaders of the global South at the expense of the other, I think, and that makes BRICS, it's almost paralyzed. It's just not a forum within which you can create an alternative geoeconomic, geopolitical order. And I think it's a fantasy, an understandable one, because people are irritated with.
Okay, Professor Andrew, while you mentioned some of the big picture, let's now come to the immediate steps. Since the Galwan conflict, this is the first visit that Prime Minister Modi will make to China. And the second visit of the Chinese foreign minister happened now, after 2022. There is a clear effort on both sides to try and bridge the divide, the deficit, and work on their differences because they want to Trump-proof their economy. Again, I come back to ask you the same question. Many in DC would not be looking at this scenario and would most certainly not prefer this because that further isolates America.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's where I was going, is that the United States, too, has interests. And I think we need to distinguish between Trump and the foreign policy establishment. They don't always see eye to eye on these things. But I think both of them are caught up in the fantasy that this is still the unipolar moment, as opposed to the reality, which
is this is a big moment, sir. And I will have to interrupt all three of you there, gentlemen.